Hello everyone, my name is Ajay and today we are going to discuss about virtual private cloud peering. We all know it, we created multiple times VPCs in different geographical regions. So let's see when you have multiple VPCs, how they can communicate to each other. So for example, I have one account and all these VPCs are part of basically same account. So VPC A, it might be located in US East 1. This might be in 2, and this can be a third AWS region. Or you have a choice, you can create multiple VPCs in same region also. So that is up to you. So peering doesn't matter, you can still peer, still communicate all the resources who those are going to sit in different VPCs. So this VPCs, for example, A, it might host some sort of the shared resources. And resources in VPC-V and VPC-C, they want to access all the resources, those are part of the VPCA. So you can create the peering. That's how they can communicate to each other. Creating peering in AWS, there's no particular charges for that, but AWS will charge you based on the data transfer, what happens over the peering. And all this data transfer basically happens or utilize the AWS backbone network. So this is one example. Second, very similar, you can see VPC-A, it is kind of the shared resource, and rest of the VPCs, they wanted to access resources in A. One thing I want to mention here, the peering is not limited to one account. You might have 10 VPCs in one account and you can peer it, which is perfectly okay. Even if you want to peer it in different account, that is also one of the possibility. So if your organization have multiple accounts, you can also establish the same kind of peering between those accounts. Now we understand what is called VPC peering, and there are going to be unsupported scenarios as well. So let's discuss one by one, and then we'll go to the lab and perform all these activities. So my first example, I have VPC A, VPC V, and both VPCs, they're using the same boundary, the same CIDR block. That is something which is not supported. And that is also one of the basic fundamental when we talk about the networking on the legacy or on the hardware level of the equipments. You cannot have the conflicting IP ranges. Similarly, if you have multiple CIDR blocks attached, still there's a conflict. Everything should be unique. And I see here this 10.0.0.0/16 and same block is here. Even if you have two different CIDR blocks, you cannot establish pairing. It has to be unique. Very similar concept when you are using the IPv6. Here you can see I have an overlapping IPv4 range, so it is not going to establish the pairing here itself. There is another very basic functionality of VPC that it is non-transitive. It means even if I have the peering between A and B, which is this one, and between A and C, it doesn't mean the resources in VPC can talk to resources in VPCC. That is non-transitive. However, there are scenarios which is kind of the workaround. Maybe you put some sort of the proxies in VPC-A, so which is going to have two NICs. So you can communicate to this NIC, and the second NIC can communicate to the VPCC. So there are workarounds. You might use third-party appliances to make it happen. By default, it is not going to communicate. Same scenario, you might have your site-to-site tunnel established between your corporate network to VPC-A, and there's a peering between VPC-V and VPC-A. It doesn't mean your corporate network can communicate to VPC-V from VPC-A. That is something also not supported. There are also peering status, peering connection status. So initially, when the request is raised, it is going to tell you that the initiating request, and the initiation can happen from one side. Second side has to accept it. So until somebody has not accepted it, it is going to show you the status, which is going to be the pending acceptance. Once it is accepted, it is going to be the provisioning. And once the provisioning is done, it is going to be the active. So active is something which is good. It means your peering connection, it is working. If any of this stage fails, for example, your initiation fails or acceptance expired or it is rejected or it is something deleted, it is no longer going to be visible. We will see all these status when we do the lab. Let's try to understand about topology, what works when you do the peering, what doesn't work. So in this case, I'm going to use one reason and you can create one VPC with this CIDR block, which is going to be 10.10.0.0/16. You can create another VPC in the same region with the second CIDR block, which is going to be it's 20.10.0.0/16. And you need to carve the subnet from these range. So I'm going to carve subnet slash 24 basically from both the CIDR blocks. So slash 24 here also, and you can establish basically the peering between these two VPCs. Internet gateway, that is something, a component which is attached to your region. It means this VPC can go out from the same IGW and this VPC can also use the same IGW. Let's do a small modification in our topology. What we will do, we will create this VPC, which is going to be the VPC3 in a different AWS region. So this is going to be the CIDR block. And in the lab, I'm going to show you if you have VPCs in the same region, they can use the same IGW. If AWS region gets changed, it is going to use a separate IGW from there. So let's verify from the console. I've chosen the region as North Virginia, which is going to be the US East 1, and Ohio, it is going to be the US East 2. I have no VPC, even I deleted the default VPCs from these two regions. Now let's try to build the lab from Terraform. So a couple of things to be noticed here. Earlier, whatever the configuration we were making, there was a single provider, AWS, and you need to mention the region also. So whatever the resources you create in that particular script, all the resources were part of that region what you define here. And then obviously you're going to have the access keys, those are hidden here. Since we are talking about building the resources in two different regions, so what you need to do, you can utilize a concept which is called using multiple providers, and you can use the alias feature here. So in the first one, I have US East 1, and the second provider, I can use it with the alias, and whatever the resources you're going to provision, they will be part of the US East 2. For example, I want to create my first VPC, which is going to be the demo. The name is going to be the demo, and it is going to use the CIDR block, which is going to be the 10.10.0.0/16. I have not mentioned any provider. That means it is going to be defaulting to US East 1. The second VPC which I want to create, it is going to be the demo -1, and the CIDR block is going to be dot 10.0.0/16. The name is going to be the demo-1. I'll have to mention the provider here. Otherwise, this resource will also be created in EOS East 1. So how can we do it? I'm going to use provider. I'm going to put the alias what we created. So provider is going to be aws.east.2. That is the alias. Let's commit the changes and it tells you there are two resources, those got added. Let's verify those resources from the console. So I can see in Ohio, I have demo-1 with setup block start with 20. And in North Virginia, US East 1, I have one VPC which is named demo with the CIDR block 10.10.0.0/16. So that is what is expected. It is time to create our two subnet. The first subnet which I'm going to create as a public, that is going to be part of the default provider, which is going to be the US East 1. And the CIDR block which I'm taking is going to be 10.10.10.0/24. And similarly, I'm going to create another resource, which is going to be another subnet, which we call public 1. That is going to be the part of another provider. It means it is going to create a subnet in US East 2. And that subnet, the CIDR block is going to be 20.10.10.10.0/24. So let's try to create it now. You can go for Terraform init, Terraform apply, and we can see there are resources got added. Let's verify on the portal. So the first subnet what we created is a public, and that got created in US East 1. Availability zone is going to be 1A. Second subnet is public-1. Availability zone is East 2A, and the CIDR block 20.10.10.10/24. Under VPC, you can see peering connections, and when we hit the peering connections, we see there's no peering established, and that is something expected. So when we create the peering from portal, you basically need to create it from here, create peering connection. When you hit the create peering connection, you can see this screen and it tells you the name is optional. However, it is recommended that you put something which is meaningful to you. Second thing, you need to choose a local VPC. So as I mentioned, VPC is going to be some sort of the regional component, and whatever the reason you have chosen, it is going to populate all those VPCs here. This time we are trying to do it from North Virginia, hence you can see the reason which is automatically coming is US hyphen East hyphen 1. And then you need to mention the VPC ID for acceptor. We can see here the VPC ID that is for the remote. So basically that is going to be coming here. And then you hit create peering connection. Now I filled all the information. So my name is going to be from demo to demo-1. That tells me the local VPC is going to be the named as demo, remote is going to be the demo-1. This is the VPC ID. If you have multiple VPCs, this drop down is going to populate all those VPCs basically. Then you see the setter block attached. This is within my account. Now, since we are doing peering with another region, we need to mention what is going to be that particular region and what is going to be the VPC ID. That VPC ID comes what you have seen on my previous screen. Now it's time to create the connection. Since we requested the connection, we can see the connection has been requested. And this state basically it comes from when we have discussed about the life cycle of the VPC connections. This is going to be the object. This is demo to demo-1 VPC peering and initiation requests to this. This is the current status. You can also see the requested CIDR value, acceptor, and acceptor region as well. We initiated this connection from US East 1. So acceptor is going to be in another region since we have the VPC created as a part of US-East-2. Since we already requested peering, the connection from initialization, it has changed to pending acceptance. If you recall it, we already discussed you can initiate connection from one side and another side has to accept it. So that is something also expected and part of the VPC peering lifecycle. Let's discuss how to accept the connection. So you need to change the region. Now I'm inside Ohio, which is US-East-2, and we can see there's one VPC peering connection which is pending for the acceptance. So select it and go to the actions, and in the action you have option to reject it, manage the tag, delete it, or accept it. So we are going to accept it. Once you accept it, this is the new window pop-up will open for you, and you need to hit the accept request. Now we can see the status has been changed to provisioning. So it has been established, status provisioning. If you refresh it once more, the final status for PC connection is going to be active, and that is something good and expected. That tells you the VPC connection what you created, it is in working state. Now I'm going to delete this connection from Ohio side just to see what is the status going to come, and then we will do the similar lab again from the Terraform. So I go to the action, I delete it, so we can see the status has got changed to deleting, and finally we see the status is deleted. This will remain here for some more minutes, and once it is this object is completely deleted, you're not gonna see any VPC connection peering. Now let's try to create it from Terraform. So for these were the VPC connections we created. Now it's time to create the peering. So it is going to be the resource AWS VPC peering connection. You can give the name whatever you want. So I'm going to use the same name as we did the lab earlier. So it's going to be the demo 2, demo 1 VPC peering. Same tag I'm going to give it here. You need to mention the local peering and remote. So my local VPC ID is going to be AWS vpc.demo.id. My remote is going to be the demo-1.id. One thing we need to mention here, peer reason. That is very, very important. If you're not going to mention it here, it is not going to create because it will not be aware about the remote. And the reason behind, you see there's no provider. So it goes back to the default provider, and default provider is going to be the AWS-East-1. So whatever the activity we do here, that will reflect under that. So let's try to create the pairing now, and we can see it has been successfully created. Let's verify on the portal. So you can say there's a one pairing connection exists, and that is pending for acceptance. Now let's edit our Terraform script to accept the connection. So we are done until here. Now we need to add one more resource, that is going to be the AWS VPC peering connection acceptor, since we are trying to accept the connection which is originated from US East-1. So it is going to be auto accept, and you need to mention the VPC peer connection ID, and that is something driven from here. You also need to mention the provider, and this time provider is going to be AWS.east2. That means this resource will be created in Ohio. And that is also something which is expected. So let's try to do it, and we can see there's one resource got added. Let's verify on the portal so we can see the status is active. That means whatever the activity we have performed from Terraform, it works. Now I'm going to connect or going to create a gateway, which is going to be the internet gateway, and that will be part of US East 1, named as demo.gateway. And the reason I'm creating this just to show you, even though if you have the peering established, it doesn't mean you can use the same internet gateway from your peered VPC. So let's try to create this gateway. Now we see there's a internet gateway demo-gw. It exists as a part of North Virginia. When I go to Ohio and go to internet gateway, I do not see it here. That tells you you cannot do any sort of the routing where you can point it default route towards the gateway what we created as a part of North Virginia. So that is also expected. So we need to keep in mind whatever the internet resource, internet gateway resource we create, it is going to be the regional object. One very important topic, nothing works until you do the routing. Though your peer has been established, but you still need to do the routing. So in the routing, what we do, basically, whenever you create the VPC, it is going to create a local route that is expected. And the rest of the communication, you need to put the routing. Whether you want to go for the internet, then you're going to put a default routes towards the internet gateway. This time we want to communicate between the peers. So I'm going to put the remote CIDR block here, which is going to be 20.0.0.0/16. And from the drop down, you need to choose where you want to point it, this traffic. So I'm going to choose it peering connections. When you click on the peering connections, you can see there is one peering connection exists. You can choose it and you can save it. And then this route has to attach to your subnet. That's how the whole thing is going to communicate. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.